Hello, this is the Elder Scrolls Halloween special, I guess. If you're watching this at any other time of the year, what are you doing? I made this joke like the past 2 years, but come on, turn it off. If it's not October anymore, you really shouldn't be watching this. I bet you're wondering, why isn't an hour long? Well, see, your boy here was busy working on his entry for the Newgrounds Halloween TV collab, and that took a while, so he didn't want to make a real video. So instead, your boy, me, sat down and decided to read lore, spooky lore, for like an hour. Well, an hour's worth of it. It took a lot longer than an hour. So, yeah, sit back for minimal editing and a lot of my voice. Skeletons are a form of undead consisting of the reanimated bones of the dead. They're often found protecting the dungeons, forts, and ruins of Tamriel. Many variety of animated skeleton exists, some stronger than others. Skeletons have a certain resistance to edged weapons and frost spells, though skeletons of humans and elves are generally the same. Orcs have a different skull due to the tusks of their lower jaw, and beast races such as Argonians and Khajiits have different skulls overall. Skeletons are often raised by necromancers and are classified as reanimated dead among scholars. The reanimated undead have no sense of self or memory of their past lives. When animated using a minor Daedric spirit, they are more malleable, easier to command, and capable of following simple orders. A necromancer's perfect basic servant. The longer a corpse remains inanimate, the less of a hold the spirit of the corpse's original owner has on it. A necromancer's spell is capable of gathering scattered fragments and knitting them together with a necrotic binding, allowing the skeleton to move. There are several advantages to using skeletons over zombies as minions. Reanimated skeletons won't drop bits of rotting flesh in a necromancer's ritual circle or lair, and have a tendency to be sturdier and quicker and more dangerous than zombies. Necromancers who seek to raise skeletons can pull bones from fresh corpses or live subject, though the latter is more difficult, as it requires more powerful spells to accomplish. The newly dead provide strong, sturdy bones that can deal and withstand punishment equally. Newly dead skeletons also tend to be more agile, though they display a certain clumsiness common to all newborn creation. Necromancers can also pull skeletons out of crypts and graveyards to find fodder for the reanimated needs. Older bones often hold great power, but older bones often tend to shatter quicker than bones harvested from a fresh corpse, but compensate their frailty with the fact that they potentially hold more power for a necromancer to command. The mortal races aren't the only ones whose bones can be brought back from the dead. The skeletons of animals can also be reanimated. Necromancers with a lack of understanding of a beast's anatomy will find their creations hobbled and deformed. They lack strong bonds between body and soul that more advanced beings possess, and are mostly devoid of awareness. Reanimated animals are mindless puppets that must be controlled with total concentration. Skilled necromancers can produce undead with instincts similar to that of their living counterparts, but these constructs are often disturbed by their condition and are very difficult to control. A zombie is a reanimated corpse risen from the dead, mostly through the use of necromancy. They can also come about through certain diseases such as the Lodos Plague. When a necromancer wishes to create a zombie, they must take the body to a suitable site and enact a ritual to resurrect the corpse. As an ancient part of tradition, those wanting an apprenticeship to a necromancer will sometimes create a zombie to show their prospective teacher. Zombies are also conjurable, and mages can learn how to summon them from oblivion. Zombies can come in many forms and in various stages of decay. They don't even require a head, and sometimes a zombie can be found missing various limbs. Some zombies are known to vomit at people as a part of their attacks. The bite of a certain zombie can pass on a rotting disease that, if isn't treated, will turn the victim into a zombie. Zombies are also known carrier of disease. They are known to pass on the following illnesses: ataxia, astral vapors, chanthrax blight, collywobbles, green spores, rattles, rust chancre, serpiginous dementia, swamp fevers, wither, and yellow tick. Ghosts, also known as spirits, are the disembodied souls of the deceased that, for one reason or another, are unable to move on to their respective afterlife. They are classified as being a form of undead, known as the returned. Most often they remain on Nirn because they had some form of unfinished business they wanted to complete before they move on. The deeds of a spirit in life can sometimes cloud their path to the afterlife. Such spirits held back by guilt or unresolved affairs might refuse entry into the afterlife even if they have been accepted into it. Being summoned to provide aid to the living through lending their strength or inhabiting and animating bodies willingly is said to be one of the ways through which spirits can resolve the issues that kept them from the afterlife. Once employed by certain branches of necromancy, such as that used by the Order of the Hidden Moon, in some cases these powerful unresolved emotions might cause the soul itself to crack and be wounded, allowing for a void to be created within. Forgiving oneself can heal the void wound, allowing the spirit to proceed on to the afterlife. Ghosts can also come about when prevented from entering the afterlife. One of the known methods of this is through the use of curses, magical rituals performed to summon and bind them to Nirn. One of the most prolific methods of bringing souls back is ghosts. Ghosts can come in many shapes and forms. Some are so degraded that they appear to only have their upper bodies, while others may appear skeletal or whatever shape their body was in death. Most often, they will appear exactly as they did in life. During combat, ghosts can see invisible enemies and often have a chilling effect on those who they attack, being able to drain the magicka from their enemies from a distance. They can even be hard to hit, often hiding in the shadows. Similar to other supernatural creatures, ghosts are often the target of professional hunters dedicated to dealing with them, with some of these hunters encountering various strange spirits and unusual entities during their hunt. Though hunted, it's said a ghost never truly dies, even when slain, merely losing the energy of which they had built up, allowing them to manifest within the world. As the disembodied souls of the dead, ghosts are normally insubstantial and incorporeal, able to neither be touched nor seen. Manifesting in tangible and visible form requires energy, which not all ghosts have. As a result, though present throughout Tamriel, a spirit will often not appear until it comes into contact with necromantic energy. Ghosts are innately audible and visible to certain mortals with unnaturally keen perception, as well as during the phenomenon such as the plane meld, which both increased the frequency of hauntings and allowed even the average mortal to perceive spirits. Surviving a near-death experience is also said to make communication with spirits easier. Ghosts can sometimes manifest in a form that's visually identical to their living selves, with their true nature as spirits only becoming apparent once they let their true nature become known. Places where a lot of suffering have occurred are said to be infused with the necromantic energies a soul feeling such emotion produces, creating a miasma that can trap and prevent souls from moving on into the afterlife, turning them into ghosts, a phenomena commonly encountered in battlefields. Ash vampires, also known as heartrights, are powerful immortal ash creatures created by the connection forged by Dagoth to the powerful heart of Lorkhan. Considered distinct from actual vampires themselves, the term ash vampire and blood vampire are used to distinguish between the two kinds. In addition, these creatures are not actually undead, and it is impossible to catch vampirism from them. Despite this, many on Vardenfell consider them a powerful form of undead. There were only 7 known ash vampires. They were considered the brothers to Dagoth, and they were chief among his servants, serving as his lieutenants and described as powerful and cunning sorcerers of old, similar in appearance to Dagoth himself, possessing sharp claws and a third eye. They served as the nobility of House Dagoth. They were known to have slept alongside Dagoth under Red Mountain for thousands of years. Dagoth was able to give portions of his power and immortality to these few individuals of his original house. As such, they appeared to die. They would eventually be revived at the heart. Dagoth's plan for his brethren was for them to be established as the god priests of Akulakan. A vampire is a preternatural being, commonly believed to be a reanimated corpse which consumes the blood of living creatures. The vampires of Tamriel are undead, diseased persons who are hated, hunted, and misunderstood by the living, whether they consider themselves cursed or blessed, or whether they have given to their animalistic instincts or sought out to rid the disease. Vampires are nonetheless considered abominations. Though it's possible to find a cure, knowledge of how to do so has been suppressed in many places due to the fear that it would encourage people to deliberately infect themselves. Imperial culture views vampires as destructive monsters to be hunted and destroyed, though romantic notions of noble and virtuous vampires persist in the imperial traditions through the Third Era, and vampires were thought to pass unrecognized in the Mages Guild and the imperial aristocracy. Other names for vampires include blood vampire, vampire, thirster, bloodsucker, scion of Baal, and Nosferatu. Vampires are classified as accursed undead, as their undead status arises from the curse of vampirism, as opposed to a necromancer's manipulation of the buried dead. While some vampires claim to have a heartbeat, others have claimed their heartbeats ceased after contracting vampirism. While vampires' capabilities often include incredible speed, advanced mystical talent, and unnatural strength, their ability to infect and spread to others, fate often described as worse than death, is among the most frightening. Vampires have been shown to be able to turn into bats. Some vampires express the need to breathe, having to actively hold their breath when necessary. Others attest to not having the need to breathe since being afflicted. Distrust and chaos can potentially bring down an entire settlement should just one vampire infiltrate the populace. Persistent myths claim that vampires are weak to garlic, but they are untrue. To date, only one vampire has ever been harmed by garlic due to a pre-existing allergy. This was a wholly unique phenomenon, and all other attempts to combat vampires with garlic will inevitably end in disaster. Vampires spread their affliction by giving mortals such diseases as porphyric hemophilia, sanguinar vampiris, and noxophilic sanguivoria. Infections are caused by being bitten or scratched by a vampire. Sanguinar vampiris and polypheric hemophilia both have a 3-day incubation period, in which the infected will become a vampire after the allotted time has passed. These diseases can be cured as any other disease could before the 3-day period has passed. Vampires inflicted by either of those two strains are weakened by the sunlight. Vampires tend to organize into different clans or covens. In fact, there are over 100 distinct varieties of vampire in Tamriel. Some creatures are often found near vampire lairs. Examples include deathhounds and gargoyles, which can often be found guarding vampires. The most defining characteristic of vampires is their unnatural, insatiable need for blood. Blood may not be needed to stay alive, but going without it can cause a vampire to become extremely weak and rabid. Though some types of vampire will instead become stronger, however, they will still turn rabid after going too long without blood, and in some cases can fall into a coma. To some, blood is an acquired taste, affected by the mood and race of the source. Similarly, other cursed beings such as werewolves have unique flavors. Consuming blood also allows vampires of some bloodlines to maintain a more inconspicuous appearance, dulling their vampiric qualities. If a vampire's bite leaves its victim alive after feeding, the vampire risks passing its disease to the victim. A mortal's blood may not be needed to keep vampires healthy. It is suggested that vampires are able to drain any warm-blooded creature's blood instead. Many vampire clans have their own unique methods or traditions when it comes to feeding. Some victims suffer a fate worse than death, such as being kept as thralls to be fed on continuously by their captors. Vampires are capable of eating mortal food, but won't derive the sustenance they need from it. They can still become intoxicated by partaking in alcoholic beverages, though. A writer's experiments in the hybridization of a plant and vampiric blood led to the spawning plants with a voracious hunger for blood, similar to that of a vampire. The aforementioned plants would die when exposed to sunlight. Vampires look distinctly different from unaffected persons. Their faces are unusually pale. Skin coloration of some is purple. The eyes of some breeds of hungry vampires turn blood red until their thirst is sated. Some vampires only have 2 fangs on their upper incisors, while some vampires have 4 fangs, one for each incisor. Vampires are unable to age and are immune to disease. Though they are impervious to death by old age, vampires may be killed by the hand of another. A vampire's skin is extremely susceptible to sunlight, though the degree of which they are afflicted varies by the specific strain. In some, it is so severe that mere contact with sunlight burns the skin, while others, the sun is simply uncomfortable and the sensation is described as someone rolling pine cones all over my skin without end. Some vampires use parasols to protect themselves from the sun. Most vampires are also especially vulnerable to fire. When they die, their dust can be collected and used as an alchemical ingredient. Documents describe vampires being turned to dust even without being slain by flame. Rumor holds that entering a place of worship may also cause a vampire pain. Silver is also known to be an effective weapon against vampires. The exact ability and weakness a vampire may possess are determined by the bloodline they are part of or the disease with which they have been infected. Small amounts of vampire blood can be used to give an injured or dying mortal strength and vitality. Those whose bodies are shutting down due to the persistence of poison can have vampire blood administered to them. Vampire blood is prized by necromancers and desperate alchemists. Vampiric infections appear to be able to cure or halt the progress of bloodborne diseases as well. At least one male vampire has been documented to father a child with a living partner. The Journal of Lord Leviticus recounts how an imperial impregnated an orc woman, resulting in a male orc child who was named Agronak Gromalag. This child inherited unnatural fighting abilities like increased speed, resistance to magical and normal weapons. Also had unnaturally gray skin. It is commonly believed that the soul of someone afflicted with vampirism will end up in Cold Harbor following their demise. Others, however, believe otherwise, that it is not a Daedric curse that determines where a soul goes, but instead the choices made by a mortal in life. Similar to this, one vampire came to believe that spiritual corruption was a choice, even if vampirism did make them lean to evil. Another example is the case of the Adoring Admirer. Despite perishing as a vampire, he was capable of remaining on Nirn as a spirit, to give a final farewell to the vestige before passing on, seemingly peacefully, to the afterlife. The agent also encountered vampires in Aetherius during their quests, though whether these arrived in Aetherius through death or conventional means is unknown. Lycanthropy is a supernatural condition that causes a person to transform into a werebeast, also known as were-things, were-critters, were-creatures, man-beasts, skin-changers, and skin-shifters. These individuals are an unnatural cross between beast and their original race. Lycanthropy is a disease that seeps into the spirit. It is known as Hircine's gift by those who view it as a blessing, and Hircine's curse to those who see it negatively. Lycanthropy is contagious and not selective about who it afflicts. Due to the dangerous and bloodthirsty nature of lycanthropes, these conditions have been hated and feared through much of Tamriel's history. There are several known strains of this condition, most of which are specific to certain regions of Tamriel. However, the most common strain, which causes the afflicted to turn into a werewolf, is known to occur across the whole continent. Those who are infected with lycanthropy are often referred to as lycanthropes. They are also occasionally referred to as lupines or loops. Strictly speaking, the word lycanthrope should only refer to men who change into wolves, but has long been used to refer to anyone who undergoes a similar beast transformation. Like vampirism, lycanthropes are able to spread their condition by transmitting a disease, which progresses to full-blown lycanthropy within a few days if left untreated. For instance, Sanes lupinus can be contracted by werewolves, and over time will convert the afflicted into a werewolf. Transmission can be brought about through being wounded via claws or teeth of the werebeast. However, since most victims are killed, transmission occurs less commonly out in the wild. The surest way to pass the curse is to drink the blood of the lycanthrope. Doing so immediately converts the one who partakes in the blood into a lycanthrope. The first transmission occurs within moments and is usually intense. A lycanthrope's form is dictated by the strain of lycanthropy contracted by the victim. Like an Argonian will turn into a furry werewolf, just like any other race across Tamriel. Lycanthropy was originally created by the Daedric prince Hircine, who bestows it as a blessing upon the devoted and great hunters, hence why sometimes it's referred to as Hircine's gift. Some of his faithful say that he gave this gift to the first hunters who worshipped him to honor them. He took their cunning and fused it with the strength and shape of beasts. As so, Hircine is the father of man-beasts. Lycanthropes are considered his children, and he serves as their guardian. Hircine is quite proud of lycanthropes. He resents those who receive his gift willingly but have come to regret it, and thus may task people to slay his unappreciative children to put them out of their misery. Regardless of whether they worship him or not, Hircine will typically claim the souls of werewolves, and they will spend eternity in the hunting grounds. Hircine is rumored to have unleashed the curse of lycanthropy on Nirn in early history, the earliest accounts being in the Merithic era. Tale that goes, Hircine meddled with the nature of wolves, making them susceptible to shapeshifting. This modification is the origin for both werewolves and the wild hunt wolf. As their name suggests, are wolves that have become unraveled because they have forgotten their Y'ffre taught form, much like the creatures that get caught up in the Bosmer's wild hunt ritual. These first few selected were personally blessed by Hircine himself. They're known as the the first turned, and are comparable to Molag Bal's Daughters of Cold Harbor. These individuals would pass down their gift and their chosen would follow suit, leading to spread their condition throughout Tamriel. According to legend, lycanthropes were already being hunted down by Thane Icehammer during the reign of Hoag Murkiller. Followers of Hersine can ritually bestow this blessing upon others, can even replace vampirism with lycanthropy, as the two conditions are mutually exclusive. Unlike Molag Bal, Hersine maintains an active role in its creation's existence. He has been known to personally enhance favored lycanthropes with heightened abilities and reward some with powerful artifacts. An example of one of these tangible boons is the Ring of Hersine, which allow lycanthropes to control their transformations. Lycanthropes are almost universally despised. Those with control over their condition may be treated in any number of ways. They may be respected by groups who pay heed to Hersine, uneasily tolerated or shunned, or even killed on sight. The people of Skyrim rub canis root on their neighbors' trees and fences to keep werebears at bay. There are also several signs to look out for when werewolves are suspected to be around. If wolves can be heard and howling when there are none to be found, or strange animal tracks that suddenly disappear are present, werewolves may be in the area. During the interregnum, Imperial soldiers were advised to turn themselves into their superiors for immediate execution if they became infected with lycanthropy. In Bosmer, society taking on the form of beasts is strictly forbidden by the Green Pact. Wood elves who deign to change their shape may be condemned to the formlessness of the ooze. Because of the dangerous and unpredicted nature of lycanthropes, they are more feared than vampires in some circles. Due to their reverence for Hersine, it is not uncommon to find lycanthropes among the Reachmen. In a similar vein to Briarhearts, lycanthropy is viewed by most Reach folk as a self-sacrifice. Some texts indicate that it is seen more as a useful condition rather than a gift, one which is suffered so the individual can better serve their clan. Other texts describe it as a gift, and Reach clans have been proven zealous about the gift. As conflicts between them and the Viridian Weird have been reported, many Reach folk's greatest champion are lycanthropes. They function as guardians and protectors of their clan. Individuals that specialize in tracking down and killing lycanthropes are often known as werewolf hunters. They may work alone or in small groups, or they have become part of a larger organization dedicated to wiping out lycanthropy. Such groups include Death Hunters, Order of the Silver Dawn, the Silver Hand, and the Vigilance of Stendar. Several symptoms can be displayed in those infected with lycanthropy. The afflicted may be plagued by vivid nightmares. The wounds they receive from their lycanthropic attacker may be deep and visible. Those infected with Sanus lupinus may find themselves running into wild creatures, suffering strange injuries, feeling drowsy suddenly before experiencing their senses sharpening. While not transformed, werewolves may find that they've grown more hair in unexpected places, such as their ears. Werewolves can rapidly grow claws, and their fur has a tendency to become matted. The most obvious and important effect of lycanthropy is the beast transformation itself. While in beast form, the lycanthrope has increased height and altered proportions, with one strain being recorded as having increased shoulder width, lengthened arms, narrowed hips, and increased leg height. The physical alterations grants the werebeast enhanced strength, speed, resilience, and stamina, as well as enchanted claws that can harm creatures that are immune to conventional weaponry. Lone werewolves are almost never far from their pack. Engaging them alone is a grave mistake. A werewolf's howl can not only call other werewolves to the beast's aid, but it can call forth regular wolves and bears as well. Werebeasts are affected mentally as well. They experience intense bloodlust. In extreme cases, the victims experience difficulty remembering what they did while transformed, or they become delirious. Werewolves who starve themselves can turn feral, putting them at risk for being unable to control their based impulses should they encounter a mortal. Starving werewolves may kill impulsively, or find that their self-control is only restored when their hunger is sated. The Wild Hunt, also called the Great Hunt, is a magical trait innate to all Bosmer. It is brought on by a collective ritual performed by many Bosmer, causing them to shapeshift into a horde of feral eldritch beasts. This transformation cannot be undone. These monsters stampede, changing their form constantly, slaying and devouring all in their path, devouring the flesh of those in their way to the bone in seconds. And eventually, when left with no surviving targets, they turn upon themselves. The transformation is seen by the Bosmer as a return to the chaos of the Dawn era. They call the ooze, a state of existence where where all life and land on Nirn were formless and shifted constantly between shapes, unable to hold one form for more than a moment. Acknowledged also in Altmer myth, it was Jeffrey who granted all things their names and gave them an enduring form. The Bosmer thus believed that after they made the Green Pact with Jeffrey, he taught them how to escape that chaos and retain their form, but also how to return to it by instigating the Wild Hunt. As all life started as part of the shifting chaos of the ooze and had their shapes taught to them by Jeffrey, getting caught up in the vicinity of the Wild Hunt ritual can also lead non-Bosmer to forgetting their taught shapes. Bonds of name bestowed upon them unraveled and transformed into Wild Hunt creatures. An excerpt from Dance in Fire, Chapter 4. It was as if a crack in reality had opened wide. Flood of horrific beasts, tentacled toads, insects of armor and spine, gelatinous serpents, vaporous beings with the face of gods, all poured forth from the great hollow tree, blind with fury. They tore the Khajiit in the front of the temple to pieces. All the other cats fled for the jungle, but as they did so, they began pulling on the ropes they carried. In a few seconds' time, the entire village of Vindisi was boiling. Shapeshifters of the Wild Hunt are stripped of their flesh from their bone instantaneously and turn into creatures that defy all attempts to identify them. Some may not even turn into creatures at all, instead changing into great writhing tongues, unfettered by lips or teeth, or can take on a gaseous form which makes them impossible to contain without the aid of magic. There's even some suggestions they can take on the form of water or waves of blood. However, they may appear like a serpent one moment and then shift into a creature the next. The purpose of the Wild Hunt varies with each separate hunt, from an act of vengeance to a tool of war. In either case, the Bosmer are not proud of their ability and are unwilling to discuss the hunt at great length. One of the rare accounts on the nature of the Wild Hunt states that every monster in the world that has ever been comes from a previous hunt. As such, Bosmer are reluctant to use the hunt, except as an act of desperation. The change is said to be irreversible. The monsters that do get created by the Wild Hunt, all former Bosmer, are said to be ferocious and long-lived. Notable examples include Willie the Bitten and the King Dead Wolf Deer. Witches and witchmen are practitioners of hedge magic known as witchcraft. They tend to gather in covens that vary in faith and practices. Witchcraft is seen in a negative light, and practitioners are sometimes persecuted by witch hunters, individuals that specialize in rooting out and destroying dark cults and profane sorcery. There are a variety of ways to become a witch, and traditions vary across Tamriel. Some witches receive the secret mark of power in an arcane ritual, while others seek the patronage of a Daedric lord. Witchcraft is said to involve opening oneself to the invisible world. Witches were granted special permission by Sothasil to summon Daedric princes as per the terms of the Cold Harbor Compact established in First Era 2920. The Witches' Festival is an annual holiday that falls on the 13th of Frostfall, coinciding with Mathala's summoning day. During the festival, the denizens of Tamriel defy their superstitious fears. Ghosts, demons, and evil spirits are mocked and celebrated by both occult occurrences and outrageous costumes. Sinister types gather in the wilderness outside of cities. The creatures they summon or create may plague Tamriel for eons. I guess. The Witches' Festival earns its name as the most sacred holiday for witches. In High Rock, the Weird Covens are a Brittonic subculture of nature witches. Some myths place the creation of the weird in the Dawn Era, when Jeffrey's naming and his transformation into the first Earthbones occurred. The weird were to be wardens of nature, descended from the El-No-Fae themselves. In modern day, beliefs among the various weird covens vary. The Beldama coven, for example, still reveres Jeffrey and their El-No-Fae heritage, while the various branches of the Glenmoril Weird lean towards worshipping the Daedra. They stem from the same traditions as the Nedic ancestors of the Bretons, the Druids of Galen. A religious schism brought the Weird separation. Repulsed by myrrh and the civilization-embracing Druids they referred to as barons in ivory robes, these witches retreated into isolation and sought out the Earthbones in effort to prostrate themselves before unmarred nature. Once a singular entity, the Weird split into subgroups by the time of the last Druid King's voyage. These sisterhoods remained behind on the mainland to safeguard the forest of High Rock, with some of the dozen or so covens even spreading throughout Tamriel. The Weird's way is to turn away from civilization altogether and live in nature as beasts do. In remote regions of High Rock, such as Glen Point and the Hrothgar Mountains, witches and medicine men are held in high regard by the superstitious country folk because of their impressive magical feats. Many witches' covens dedicated to nature worship can be found in the Daenia forests. The Bretons' tradition of cremating the dead dates back to the days of High Rock's witch kings, who ruled over the Bretons at some point in their history. Tiber Septim easily conquered the squabbling Breton kingdoms, but would find it truly impossible to squash the sectarian conflicts between them that hampered trade and prosperity. Septim opted to entrust a governor of his choosing to end the feud between High Rock's witch kings, which was a successful endeavor. In Morrowind, witches similar to warlocks are typically found to be bound to the service of a Daedric prince in hopes of receiving power. They are inclined to worship the bad Daedra. Witches are drawn towards the Daedric ruins that dot the province, which are rumored to have been erected by the princes themselves. However, the Tribunal Temple is known to keep the ruins clear from any Daedric cults that may hope to spring up around them. The Mabragash are an Ashlander tribe that are primarily made up of renegade wise women who have forsaken the established rules of behavior for an Ashlander woman so that they may master the dark arts and become a witch warrior. The Mabragashes are outcasts among the Ashlanders for this reason. The Nords are said to have legendary witch warriors whose weapons are engraved with runes. Nordic smiths attempt to replicate this with their secret metal crafts for their steel weaponry. The Direfrost clan were rulers of northeastern Eastmarch and were well known for their persecution of witches, which they found their divine calling. Covens were numerous in the area, erecting hovels to Daedric princes. Frisi hags are an order of savage Nord witches dedicated to the goddess Kine, the widow of the god Shor. Each hag is a powerful ice mage in her own right, although they have been known to consort with the undead or use enchanted silver weapons. The hags wander the wilds of Solstein, living outside civilized society and indiscriminately killing any traveler they come across, viewing outsiders as a despised threat to their beliefs. They are also known to congregate in ice caves. Wind callers are Skald witches, dedicated to the Allmaker, known for their mastery of wind magic. Reachmen are often referred to as the Witchmen of High Rock, a name given to them due to their use of dark reach magic. It is believed they learned much of this magic through trading with the Orsimer, their neighbors, who also occupy the Hrothgar Mountains. Haircene is believed to be the source of where reach magic is drawn from, though the magic crosses into Molag Bal's domain when the cruel magic of the Grave Singers is involved. Reach magic has been outlawed within the Mages Guild, though that has not stopped the art from being widely studied. Hagravens were once witches, but have undergone a ritual, trading their humanity for access to powerful magic. The transformation they undergo infuse their entire beings with some element of that power. Some witches of the Reach source their magic from hagravens, performing ecstatic ceremonies of heresies, such as sacrifices to acquire dark nature magic. Although primarily a Reach folk tradition, other covens and cultures have been known to produce hagravens. Warlocks are individuals who, similar to witches, have entered a pact or oath with Daedric lords or Daedric princes, typically of the House of Troubles. However, there are warlocks who are associated with the good Daedra, such as Boethia. In exchange for their loyalty and service, warlocks were known to receive knowledge and supernatural abilities from their Daedric patrons. Warlocks are known to engage in various dark and dangerous forms of sorcery. They possessed considerable expertise in the art of summoning Daedric princes and were known to form cults. Their actions were frequently subject to prosecution under laws of both the Tribunal Temple and the Imperial legal system, as well as other groups such as witch hunters. Warlocks, just like witches, gathered during the witch festival to create or summon dangerous creatures. Warlocks were known to craft necromantic objects in preparation for the witches' festival. Blunder skulls, associated with the festival, were objects of particular interest to them. They were known for their practice of utilizing familiars, magical creatures bound to serve them, Atronox, and casting malevolent hexes, invoking curses and spells to bring misfortune upon their adversaries. The expedition tradition of Amanites experienced a significant surge in the First Era 2800s, fueled by the fashion among Nibonese warlocks. These warlocks should not be confused with the warlocks of the Mages Guild, a rank within the faction, positioned above magician but below wizard. Arcanists are mages who draw their power from Apocrypha. Although both warlocks and arcanists draw their power from Oblivion, they are different from each other. One significant difference is that arcanists, by definition, exclusively draw their power from Apocrypha through a bonded tome. In contrast, warlocks can draw their power from otherworldly sources, although the specifics of how they acquire these powers from their patrons may vary and are often unclear. According to Anzar Alcibiades, any mortal who derives their power from a plane other than Apocrypha would not be classified as an arcanist. Hallowjack, more commonly known as Lord Hallowjack or the Hallowjack Spectre, is a dread Daedric lord who rules over the demiplane of detritus. He is also known as the Lord of Mortal Fears and the Fear Daedra. Hallowjack is also known to go by the alias Carl H. Hughes, which is an anagram of his name, Hallowjack. Hallowjack is connected to the Daedric prince Hircine, with his realm being a carving from the shell of the hunting grounds. He is a unique Greater Daedra, a pumpkin specter who derives supernatural power by metaphysically feeding on the terrified whispers of all men in Myrrh, who are driven by fear to pray for divine intervention. It is in this moment of dread that Hallowjack appears, speaking softly or in whispers from a mouth full of long, sharp teeth in order to carry out his fear feeding. He has long, slender, and agile fingers tipped with sharp talons that can slash or puncture, but which are usually used to gently emphasize what the voice behind them is saying. Other pumpkin specters and scarecrow specters are his servants. Those afflicted with paranoia by him are often referred to as the Hallowjack Broken. Every year during the Witches' Festival on the 13th of Frostfall, the portals between Nirn and detritus open. As such, Hallowjack is closely associated with that festival, and it has become tradition for the celebrants to masquerade as Hallowjack during this event. Hallowjack-style armor and weapons are crafted using pumpkins, black hawthorn, and amber marble. Thank you for the ESO information. He is also said to grow stronger with each passing year. Hallowjack is associated with Jacko the Hollow, a malevolent headless spirit said to haunt the hidden hollow in Rivenspire on the night of the Witches' Festival. Jacko Hollow curses all riders across Tamriel to ride headless throughout the night, clutching a carved pumpkin atop their mount. Interrupting just to say that, hey, that's basically just the Headless Horseman, and the Headless Horseman is from upstate New York. Yeah, Sleepy Hollow is a real place called Tarrytown. Shout out to Tarrytown. Shout out to upstate New York. All real upstate New Yorkers watching this, meet me at Stewart's, your local Stewart's. I'm gonna be there at all of them at like 10 p.m. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go at 10 p.m. an hour before they close at 11, right? And then we're gonna order a whole pepperoni pizza. It's gonna piss the workers off, but who cares? Stewart's pepperoni pizza hits insanely different, especially like close to midnight. I'm telling you, if you've never had it, if you're from like Los Angeles, what would I suggest? Leaving, coming to New York, going to Stewart's at like 11 and ordering a pepperoni pizza. Can I say, worth the trip. Zooming spooky holiday lore in 3, 2, 1. In Nibonese folklore, Hallowjack has a connection to house cats. In the case of house cats where the owner was murdered, Hallowjack is said to send the spirit of the owner's cat back to haunt the house and torment the killer. Those who have earned Hallowjack's approval through a sinister rite may be gifted a Hallowjack Idric, supposedly capable of tormenting the dreams of others. The ideal masters are malevolent revenant spirits that rule the realm of oblivion known as the Soul Karen. Typically, they do not physically manifest themselves in the realm, instead preferring a type of omnipresence. However, the ideal masters have been known to manifest through a crystal resembling a soul gem, which can be used as a conduit through which the ideal master can communicate or drain the life essence of an approaching mortal. According to some sources, the ideal masters are actually disembodied living entities in a distant platonic ideal, with their only connection to the realm being small magical gems which provide a channel of communication and sensation with those bound in form to the Soul Karen. The ideal masters eternally seek souls to bring to the realm where they become eternally trapped. The ideal masters view this as a peaceful eternal life, although the undead who reside in it view it as a curse. Individual masters have names so exalted that they cannot be spoken. They call themselves the maker of the Soul Karen and were once mortal. The ideal masters originated on Nirn in the Merithic era as an early order of sorcerers who practiced necromancy and trafficked in souls. They grew to become very powerful and eventually found their physical forms to be unacceptably weak and limiting. After transcending these forms and becoming beings of pure soul energy, the sorcerers entered oblivion as immortals and selected an area of chaotic creata to create the Soul Cairn, a realm ideal for their role as soul merchants. Although immortal, they are reluctant to expend magicka, as this diminishes their eternity. It is theorized that a soul trapped in a black soul gem is sent to the Soul Cairn if used to power an enchantment. There it must eternally pledge itself to the ideal masters. Black souls, i.e. those belonging to the sentient races of people, are the most common type to be captured, although white souls, and even dragon souls, are also known to reside in the Soul Cairn. Necromancers commonly summoned these trapped souls to Mundus, although the art has been lost by the Fourth Era. Necromancers seeking greater power would historically contact the ideal masters and could gain access to armies of undead in return for souls, although oftentimes the necromancer would be deceived by the ideal masters, who would then claim their soul as well. A notable early example of this would be the deal that was made with the dragon Dunavir, who became eternally trapped within the realm due to their deceit. The master's only real connection to the Soul Cairn is through magical gems that they inhabit in the realm. They generally manifest themselves in one of two forms: a small red crystal found resting in a coffin, through which the masters can communicate, or a giant pink crystal, often found hovering above ruined structures and seemingly protecting treasure, through which the ideal master can drain the life of anyone who approaches. The effect of the ideal master's life draining can be counteracted by ingesting a soul husk, a plant native to the realm that can protect one's soul. Old retainers of an ancient Daedric human alliance are said to serve the ideal masters. The retainers achieved their state through rituals, separating their spirits from their bodies. They strengthened and organized their spirits to the point where they achieved a new form of eternal consciousness. Both the ideal masters and their servants are considered to be revenant spirits. The Soul Guard, also known as the Blessed, are the denizens of the Soul Cairn that serve the ideal masters. Necromancy, also called the necromantic arts, dark arts, or dark practice, is the manipulation of souls or the corpse of the dead. Dragons know it as Alakdilon. The practitioners of the dark art are known as necromancers. Different groups and cultures have varying different positions on what exactly constitutes necromancy. In the broadest sense, necromancy can be understood as any form of soul manipulation. Some might consider it a subset of the conjuration school of magic, as both involve the summoning of spirits and utilizing the powers of oblivion. However, necromancy is more generally understood to note the manipulation of souls of mortals and the reanimations of their corpses, leading to some considering them two distinct, different schools. Some consider it a part of death magic, its own distinct school. Typically, this soul manipulation is accomplished by binding a soul to a physical form, which has been prepared by the necromancer. Necromancy is considered immoral in most cultures and is illegal in some, as it is believed to contravene the natural process of life and death and violates the sanctity of spirits. However, there have been some significant exceptions, and the relative risks and merits of necromancy have been a controversial subject for centuries. The divisive holiday of Tales and Tallows, for example, is sometimes celebrated in its honor, which values necromancy as the oldest magical science. Much of the knowledge of it is often attributed to Daedric influences, specifically Molag Bal. Molag Bal is also the father of vampires, the undead creatures who often practice the art of necromancy. Therefore, vampirism is sometimes considered to be directly related to necromancy. Advocates for the dark practice decry its censorship, some lamenting the sacrifice of knowledge at the altar of the public opinion. One argument they've been known to give is that attaining a proper and ethical understanding of necromancy is vital to best combat the menaces who have given the practice such an infamous reputation. They downplay the dangers associated with it and criticize what is seen as a fictional divide between necromancy and some other schools, conjuration, enchantment, and mysticism, and others that possibly have some links to necromancy as well. Opponents emphasize that it is not censorship, but caution and ethics which demand that necromancy be prohibited to all but the wisest and most trusted mages. In a whole political divide here, and only then to combat the exercise of the dark practice by others. Although reanimating the dead has been practiced in some form since before the advent of written history, most of the earliest laws regarding necromancy banned it upon pain of death. It was banned by the Sigic Order, who considered it both dangerous and heretical. Later, the Mages Guild would also ban the practice. This ban technically remained in the guild for its entire history, although some archmagisters of the guild over the years were satisfied with ignoring it, some even being suspected of practicing practicing it in secret. Mannimarco, the King of Worms, has been described as the first necromancer. While some believe him to be an Altmer, he claims he is actually an Aldmer. However, if he is an Aldmer, that would make him one of the oldest beings in Tamriel's history. If accurate, this likely indicates that he was born in the Merithic era, and he directly claims to have experienced the middle dawn of the First Era. In his interview, "Where were you when the dragon broke?" During this phenomenon, linear time broke and became non-linear, and he was anachronistically called the God of Worms. The poem, Mannimarco, King of Worms, calls him the world's first undying lich. But this poem puts his ascension into a lich after he met Vanus Galarian in the Second Era. If this is true, there had been many more immortal liches before him. The dark practice, as it's known today, started with Mannimarco. He considered most necromancers to be fools and weaklings, and only lauded the abilities of his servants, the Order of the Black Worm. The only obstacle he feared was Archay. Archay's blessings served to inhibit and thwart necromantic perversions, particularly Archay's Law, which provides a corpse with unwavering protection from reanimating when it is bestowed properly via a ritual performed by the followers of Archay. Mannimarco directed his followers to undermine Archay at every opportunity, one day hoping to eradicate his influence altogether. Despite bans on necromancy in Morrowind and within the Mages Guild, it is still technically legal in Cyrodiil. In fact, there have been many times in the history of the Imperial Province where necromancy was extensively practiced and even publicly tolerated. The only known period that necromancy was supposedly abolished across the Empire was during the reign of Riemann II in the late First Era. Aelids, the long-lost elves of Cyrodiil, are thought to have possessed extraordinary necromantic knowledge. Their utilization of undead armies is well known. Some of their city-states openly practiced necromancy for untold generations in the Merithic Era. The city of Abagarlis, which became a center of worship for Molag Bal, was particularly infamous for its hordes of undead they sent against their enemies. The Empire has been known to hire at least a few necromancers who have been given corpses of criminals and traitors to legally used in the pursuit of their craft. During the Alliance War, circa Second Era 582, the Mages Guild was in disgrace in Cyrodiil and was banished from the Imperial City. The Order of the Black Worm seemed to ascend. Mannimarco was running the Empire from behind the scenes and kept close ties with the Witchmen of High Rock. Jaegar Tharn practiced necromancy during his impersonation of Uriel Septim VII and made use of undead minions. After the Eternal Champion proved to be a serious threat, the rogue Imperial Battle Mage planned to use his corpse as an undead servant, keeping the memories intact to give the experience meaning. But he was unable to kill the hero, so these plans never came to fruition. In Morrowind, because of their traditional practice of ancestor worship, the Dunmer vehemently denounced necromancy as pure evil, and it was outlawed in their ancient homeland of Morrowind. However, the human races of Tamriel often associate their ancestor worship and spirit magic with necromancy anyway, which is at least partly responsible for the dark reputation of Dunmer across the continent. The Dunmer view this belief as ignorant human misconception, for necromancy outside of the acceptable clan rituals is considered abhorrent in Morrowind. This distinction the Dunmer made was essentially meaningless to the human races, as the Dunmer consider them, and some of the beast races, to be little more than animals. While the Dunmer consider necromantic manipulation of other Dunmer abhorrent, they do not prohibit this practice of necromancy upon the remains of humans, or any other animal, bird, insect, what have you. The Telvanni in particular became renowned for their mastery of necromancy, though it is said that they will not defile the corpse of a fellow Dunmer. Certain Dunmer have their skin covered in magic scripts seen as white tattoos, which are wards against the undead. Under the Third Empire, Imperial officers recognized the practice of Dunmery ancestor veneration and the spirit magic as religion, and protected their freedom to pursue such practices so long as they did not threaten the security of the Empire. Privately, most Imperials and traitors purportedly believed the Dunmer practices were necromancy, or at least barbaric. Over the course of the Third Era, Dunmeri views on necromancy evolved. By the end of the era, the practice of necromancy upon any of the accepted races were generally viewed as an abomination. Circa Third Era 427, Morrowind was the only province in which necromancy was outlawed. However, necromancy remained viable in the province for a due time due to the Dunmeri practice of slavery, which had long allowed necromancers in Morrowind to obtain as many fresh bodies as they could afford. You know, just maybe Morrowind did deserve Red Year. I sit here and I read that and I say, you know, as much as I love him, What the fuck? Maybe you guys deserve that. You needed to be humbled. Tales and Tallows is a holiday observed all over Tamriel on the 3rd of Hearthfire. It is associated with the dead and spirits, and while most people celebrate it, they still hold superstitious fears of the walking dead in the alleys. Particularly the oldest and most superstitious townfolk who fear evil entities will possess their bodies. As such, no other holiday divides the people of Tamriel such as the 3rd of Hearthfire. Tales and Tallows also values necromancy, which is considered the oldest magic science. Noble families will host parties and invite mages because of the holiday's superstitious nature. In their active years, the Mages Guild greatly benefited during the holiday as magical items were typically sold at half price. Temples, however, were closed to the public to privately pray for the dead. In Morrowind, this holiday is known as Ancestors' Day, and unlike some Tamrielians that view it with superstition, it is a pleasant reunion of family and friends around the clan hearth, where people make food and partake in gift-giving. The celebration is generally quiet and respectful for the hearth spirits. Alright, the video is now over. Yes, I am sorry. This is all the lore I can give you for this viewing. This took a lot longer than I'd think. You'd think, hey, maybe it took an hour. It didn't. It did not take an hour to record this. It took quite a lot longer. But hey, if you're still watching it this far in, thanks. Thanks for the money, I guess. Happy Halloween. And if you're watching this any other time of the year and you sat all the way through, happy whatever day it is. Could be Christmas. Could be Christmas. Why are you watching this on Christmas? What's wrong with you? Stop. Come on, put on something jolly. Probably had a Christmas video out by now. Something, maybe. I don't know. Come on. Put on the Elder Scrolls holiday special where I talk about all the Christmassy holidays from like November through December and into like January 1st. That video is super simple, but I love it. And if this is December and you're watching it, why aren't you watching that one instead? Come on.